that's kind of the magic Band-Aid, if you will, right? Let's overlook all these concerns that we have offensively by putting this magical Band-Aid on it. I don't know about you. I'm a grown-ass man, and I don't believe in imaginary animals. Right? So I'm from the old school way of thinking with Bill Parcells. Tell me what it is, and then show me what it is at the same time.
Hello, and thank you for joining us here on Broncos and Bourbon. I'm your host, Phil Milani. Very excited for today's episode as my good friend Nick Ferguson joins the program for sort of a trade deadline special episode and also a Thursday night football episode of Broncos and Bourbon. The Broncos standing pat, not making any moves at the trade deadline this year. And I know as a fan, that can kind of feel a little disappointing, especially with the Broncos off to a 7-2 start. There's not really that one dominant team in the NFL this year that is clearly head and shoulders above everybody else in terms of being a Super Bowl favorite. It feels like the field is as wide open as it's been in a very, very long time. And the Broncos definitely in position to make some noise this year. And there were some thoughts that maybe they would go out and get another weapon for Bo Nix at the trade deadline, but the Broncos not going in that direction. I have some couple of thoughts about this. I think that for one thing, the Broncos, I think, like their young wide receivers that they have. And we've seen the last couple of weeks, guys like Troy Franklin and Pat Bryant make some nice plays and some big plays in some key moments. And I think that if you make a move and you bring in a guy at this point, you're going to hurt some of that development. So I think that the Broncos like those players. Marvin Mims, another young guy. This team has young weapons there. They're not like a huge star in the NFL right now. Nobody liked that on this Broncos team on the offensive side in terms of a weapon for Bo Nix, but they've got some guys that they like and they think that they're developing and coming along. And so do you want to give up major draft capital, to go get a name out there at the deadline? Sometimes the price can be high, and so the Broncos not making that move today. And, it can be disappointing. And maybe later on this year, if the offensive struggles continue and, the Broncos continue to wait till the fourth quarter to start really going after it. If that continues and it ends up costing the Broncos, you might look back at this moment and say, hey, they really should have made a move. This was their year to kind of go all in, especially when you see the Colts make a huge move to acquire Sauce Gardner. They give up major draft capital, but they're looking at the field and saying, look, if we bring in a guy like Sauce, our defense is going to take that step. We believe in Daniel Jones, Jonathan Taylor, and we believe that this could be our year with the field being so wide open. And so the Broncos not doing that. So I think as a fan, you're a little disappointed, but also I think that the Broncos like the long-term vision here. And so while in the moment you might have some disappointment, you got to trust the long-term vision here for the Broncos. So I think that that's a trade deadline part of it. I get into it with Nick a little bit here. And then more than that, anything else we talk about in this episode, we talk a lot about Bo Nix. And I think that so many people are getting caught up in the fourth quarter comebacks and the way that the Broncos are really turning it on and having these great performances and winning football games, 6 straight for the Broncos here. Nick really points to some of the other concerns that he has about this Broncos offense, and that against really good teams, they're going to have to play a full 4 quarters. So I think that you might enjoy some of this talk, and I think that it might incite some opinions. So if you have a comment and either you agree with Nick or you disagree, please leave them in the comments below here if you're watching on YouTube. If you are watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe as we continue to grow this page and grow the Broncos and Bourbon brand. And, we love bringing content like this each and every single week of the regular season here. So enough from me here. Let's get to my conversation with an expert, former Bronco and current media member, Nick Ferguson. Nick, thanks so much for spending some time here on the program. How you been, man?
I'm doing well, man. How about yourself?
Doing well, doing well. I think everybody in Broncos country is riding this wave this season because 6 straight wins for the Broncos, and somehow they keep on finding a way to come back in these fourth quarters. What do you think of yet again another fourth quarter comeback for this team?
Well, sensational. I mean, you definitely want to show that you have that clutch gene and you can make the plays when you need it the most. But there's a downside to that too, Phil. And most people are saying, well, let's not even talk about that. Let's just celebrate the win. Yeah, you want to celebrate the win, but you also want to acknowledge the obvious. And the obvious is that this offense at this stage of the game, they're not exactly where any of us would have thought they would actually be. And then the next question is, why? And there's a number of things that you can talk about as far as why the team is at this particular position, but they're finding ways to win games. Is it sustainable? I'm not sure, but their saving grace is that they have one of the more elite defensive units led by defensive coordinator Vance Joseph in the league.
Yeah, I mean, that defense continues to just shut down opposing offenses. Of course, C.J. Stroud goes out in that game, plays a big factor there. But I agree. Like, it just never felt like Houston was ever going to be able to come back and like score at the end there. Like, there was just like no threat of that. At least just like it never felt like that, just because that Broncos defense was so dominant on Sunday.
Yeah, backup quarterbacks are backup quarterbacks for a reason. It's a breaking case of emergency. And Davis Mills did his best to keep that Texans offense in some kind of flow and some kind of a rhythm. But when you're competing against the Denver Broncos defense, that's hard for you to do. And even when C.J. Stroud was in the game, they still had a couple of struggles here and there moving the ball down the field. But it is hard against an elite defense, as the Broncos found out themselves, because the Texans, they were a top-rated defense coming into the game as well. So for me, being a defensive guy by heart, I love those low-scoring games. I don't want to see those 44, 42 type of games. No, I don't want to see it. I appreciate creativity, but I really don't want to see. But I wanted to see how Sean Payton and the Broncos offense was going to kind of counteract what DeMeco Ryans was doing defensively. And it really showed, because it took to the fourth quarter for them to find some kind of offensive rhythm.
Yeah, they had to stay patient. I appreciate good defense, Nick, but that was way too much punting. I was like, man, come on. I want to see something happen. It was just back and forth punt fest. That was. What do you think it is about this Broncos team? Like, you think they figured something out late in the fourth quarter that they didn't know earlier in the game, and they make an adjustment, and then all of a sudden it starts clicking? Or like, why can't they just do what they do in the fourth quarter, but do it earlier in the game?
Because they're not in desperation mode. See, they need to be in desperation mode for 4 quarters, because they've proven when they've gone to desperation play calling, the execution is faster, the processing is quicker, guys are executing even that much more efficient. So they need to do it more often. And what that equates to, Phil, is up-tempo. Mm-hmm. That's what up-tempo does. It forces the play caller to look at their play sheet, call a play, ready, set it, go. Right? There's no decision making, no indecision. There's no such thing as, well, we have to take a timeout because the call wasn't in, or we have to take a delay of game penalty because the call, we were trying to figure out what do we wanted to run with this personnel group based on down and distance. Hey man, kill all that. We're seeing that this offense in the fourth quarter is working with efficiency because they're constantly under the gun. And you would think that would be the case because you're in the NFL. There's only so many high pressure jobs in this world, and this is one of them for players and coaches. So continue to keep your finger on that red button to call those types of plays, to put Bo in situations where he has to make a quick decision, because guess what? The next play is coming. That is where the Broncos need to be. But if you were to ask me, and I'm not a betting guy, what are the odds, or would I be willing to bet that would happen on Thursday? I would say, no, I'm not betting my money on that.
Yeah, it does seem like the play calling changes a little bit later in the game. Things open up a little bit more. And Bo, he uses his legs a little bit more. Like I think about the touchdown run he had against the Giants. I think about the big run that he had against the Texans that put them into field goal range for sure. That sort of like won the game, if you ask me. And we've talked about this, Nick, in the past. Like Bo is a legitimate threat with his legs. It just feels like he doesn't want to use them earlier in the game, or those design runs aren't being called for him because to me, I'm like, let him use his legs a little bit. That'll make the defense think a little bit more, and then maybe that'll open things up. Let's do that in the first quarter and see what happens.
Well, once again, there's a thing of superstition or being superstitious. And some coaches can be that way. Just think about, all the flack that Dan Quinn has been receiving based on what happened to Jaden Daniels. And that makes coordinators or head coaches or coordinators a little fearful about getting their quarterback out by design quarterback runs because they feel as though that style of play isn't sustainable. But you know what's not sustainable? Watching your offense struggle for almost 3 freaking quarters, right? Got to make sure I watch my language here. But the whole idea is that the quarterbacks in today's game, they're entirely different from when I played. It's entirely different from quarterbacks 20 years ago, with the exception of a couple of guys. But the idea is to lean on their skill set. And you're absolutely right. When a quarterback is able to run, whether it's by design or the pocket starts to break down, it puts stress on the defense. So now you have to dedicate one player to be a spy. So now you're taking one guy out of coverage. Now you can exploit that either in the run game or the passing game. We're not seeing that with the Denver Broncos. And I'm glad you brought up the play against the Houston Texans. Now, Bo could have sat in the pocket and just waited for someone to flash open. But he was like, no, the game's on the line, and he just took it. And to me, that's what I would like to see Bo do more often, because when you look at this offensive line, it's like, well, the offensive line is playing well. They're not taking many sacks. Well, you know why they're not taking many sacks? It's because the quarterback is very mobile, right? Mobile quarterbacks can help you, but hurt you at the same time, and you have to be willing to die with that. And what I mean by that, Phil, is that mobile quarterbacks get a knock for holding the ball entirely too long. You know why they hold the ball? Because they're so used to running and throwing the ball on the move to escape being sacked. So you can't love them 1 minute and hate them the next. That's par for the course, is it not?
Yeah. I think you're exactly right, because there were times earlier in the game where I was like, Bo's going to take off here, and he didn't. And he tried to throw a couple of cross-body throws to Evan Ingram that were way off the mark. And I thought for sure he was going to run on those plays. But I think you're right. Something in his brain clicks, and he's like, no, I got to do it now because the game is on the line. And so
you know what he's fighting with? It's hard to have two voices in your head, right? It's hard to have two voices. So he has his own voice in his head saying, you know what? The pocket is breaking down. I should take off to extend the play to put it in a second or third and manageable. But then he's got that other voice, that Jimmy the Cricket on his shoulder telling him, no, stay in the pocket.
Yeah.
Stay in the pocket. It's going to open up as long as you stay in the pocket and you go through your progressions. And it's like, no, he needs to take that Jimmy the Cricket and thump him off his shoulders and say, you know what? My ability got me here. So lean on that.
Yeah. There was a sack he took in that game. He dropped back, was surveying, and then he tried to step up into the pocket, but he just ran up and got sacked. When he comes up, it was like the flea flicker that everybody was talking about earlier this year. Sometimes when he steps up, he just kind of goes right into trouble, And so I think that is an area of his game where he's still working on things and just trying to get a little bit more comfortable. I think you're right. You got to just go out there and play, other quarter, like Josh Allen, he's out there putting his body on the line, but you're right. The other thing is the Broncos are winning though, because Bo is their quarterback and you can't afford to lose him, for some stretch of games here. So I get the balance, but I also think that if you can just do some things with your legs and be smart about it, what's to say you can't just take off and then slide, get that yardage, and then see what happens later in the game as things open up.
Well, Phil, I mean, sliding is a dirty word in the NFL. So if you're going to take off and run, you better make sure that you're decisive on your slide,
Yeah, because
right?
Stroud got hit. Yeah, he's so
Yes. So I can understand the apprehension of wanting to expose your quarterback,
yeah,
but football is a contact sport.
yeah,
We've watched Lamar Jackson, who's an extraordinary athlete, and he developed into an extraordinary quarterback. He was injured against the Denver Broncos, not scrambling, but in the pocket,
yeah,
right? So the idea is that you put the onus on the player and you say, hey, listen, we're going to give it to you. Be smart. You go through your progressions. Things are not open. We need to move the chains. If that means you need to run it, pick up 5 yards, great, because I'll take you back. The Giants played the Denver Broncos. It was a 3rd and 5. The Broncos had one timeout remaining. Instead of Jackson Dart deciding to pick up the 3rd and 5, he decided, well, I'm going to lock onto Bellinger, the tight end, and I'm going to throw it. Oh, by the way, guess who steps in? That's
just
Sherrod. If he takes off and just runs, he picks up the first down, and the Giants win that game.
Yeah. Yeah. I also think like you can't play this game being afraid to get hurt. Like you can just only play at one speed, So yeah, I feel like things could open up for this Broncos offense a lot more if he used his legs a little bit, but clearly there's some apprehension there doing that. Nick, on the other side of the ball, how did you see this defense adjust without PS2 out there?
They did a great job, and they have been building up to this entire point. Because when you have so many quality corners in camp, you get a chance to look at every single guy. And I got a chance during a scouting internship with the team last year. So I wasn't really too shocked at what Chris Abrams-Drain was capable of doing because it's all about opportunity. When you have PS2, the reigning defensive player of the year, locking down one corner, and then you have Riley Moss on the opposite side, then you have a first rounder in Jahdae Barron, and then you have Jaquan McMillan. It's hard to get the reps and be seen, but they knew what he was capable of doing, and hopefully he continues to make the most out of his opportunities. But I was pleasantly surprised, not surprised, but delighted, better word, with the Broncos defense. And they keep trending, upwards, not tapering off or not trending down. They're going upward. And as long as you have Nick Bonito and Jonathan Cooper running the edges, man, it's going to make life really interesting and happy for Vance Joseph, who, oh, by the way, Phil, I mean, why is it? I know we are in a quarterback-driven league, and no matter what happens, everyone talks about the offense this, the play caller this, but it's time to start talking about this defense and how well Vance Joseph has done, not just this season, but last season as well.
Yeah, I think people weren't talking about, hey, where was PS2? That really hurt the Broncos, anything like that. I mean, that falls to Vance and the job that he's done to get all these guys ready to go, adjusting the scheme, whatever they had to do. You just didn't feel like PS2 was missing, It just looked like another dominant defensive performance. I am interested this week to see, though, how they try to contain a guy like Brock Bowers, because sometimes, like we saw a little seam route there against the Texans go for some big yardage. I'm just interested to see what that matchup looks like this week, because Bowers is like, he's the best tight end in the league, it feels like, even just here in his second year.
Well, obviously, you're going to play a mixture of coverages. You just can't play zone against him. You just can't play man against him. I'm thinking that maybe this will be a game that we see the Broncos play a lot of nickel or dime coverage, because now you can get a Jahdae Barron on the field so he can cover him underneath, maybe from a press standpoint, and then have maybe Brandon Jones or Hufanga just kind of rotate over top to make sure that Brock Bowers doesn't, break loose on the vertical route. But the fact that the Raiders traded Jacoby Myers to the Jacksonville Jaguars, that should help, because a lot of the isolation is going to come with Brock Bowers. They're going to flex him out. They're going to move him around, try to get him some open catches. So every defensive player at the beginning or the end of the game should find out where Brock Bowers is and know and make sure they communicate, because it's just an idea of real recognized real. That guy was a talent at Georgia. He's still a talent. And he's one of the reasons why the Raiders record is what it was, because he's been out for a significant amount of time dealing with a knee injury. But now that he's back in the fold, that should create some spacing. So it's going to be one of those games where we're going to see a lot of Brock Bowers and Ashton Jeanty.
Yeah. Have you been surprised at the Raiders' struggles? Because coming into this year, they're a totally different team. Bring in Geno Smith, Pete Carroll running the show. They bring in a guy like Ashton Genty. There was some thought that this Raiders team might cause a little bit of trouble in the division, but it's really gone completely the other direction.
Yeah, it has. And once again, the linchpin for their offense coming into the season was Brock Bowers, who had an amazing rookie campaign. And you say, well, if you get Bowers and Ashton Genty, that makes life easier for a guy like Geno. And, Geno has done an impressive job in his career, just kind of casting away a lot of doubts of what people thought about him. But watching the Raiders struggle, to me, the first thing that jumps out to me is that, guess what? Quarterbacks don't win games by themselves. I don't care what quarterback or who it is, they don't win by themselves. And the Raiders are having issues protecting their quarterback. So if you're having issues protecting your quarterback and you have a Zach Allen, you have a John Franklin Myers, you have a Nick Benito and a Jonathan Cooper, now you're thinking, okay, well, this would be a great opportunity for the Broncos, not just offensively, but defensively to pad their stats.
Yeah. And it seems like this Chip Kelly, I don't know if it's an experiment or whatnot, but it just seems like maybe that's just not working quite well there in Vegas for the Raiders this year. And, if this was on a Sunday, I feel like there's no doubt, but does the fact that it's a Thursday night game, does that change anything for you, Nick? Like just in terms of getting the body right, the preparation, maybe some of the game planning, it's not as extensive. You're just kind of going out there and, lining up and playing ball. Does that change anything for you?
Yeah, Thursday nights are always very interesting from coaches and a player standpoint, but more so from a player standpoint. Your weekly routine is now broken down. Now, the one positive is that you get a long layoff, and they're going to need that layoff right before they play Kansas City, which is going to be a key game, and I think everyone's going to be watching. But yeah, it is tough, especially if you have a couple of bumps and bruises. You have to now try to go through your routine a little faster than you normally would do. But I mean, I bet these guys are thinking, okay, well, let's get through this game, let's get some rest, give us some time to get PS2 healthy. Not saying that he's going to play in the Kansas City game, but these Thursday night games are always tough on the body, especially when you play a physical game right before the Thursday night game.
Yeah. You got to hit that cold tub immediately, get ready, get your body right, and then, turn your sights to the Raiders here. Okay, today was the trade deadline. Some people, a lot of rumors out there that maybe the Broncos would try to swing big for maybe another pass catcher, something like that, to just give this offense a boost. The Broncos decide not to make any moves here. Were you surprised at all? Or, hey, you saw some of these young guys, a guy like Pat Bryant, starting to step up, and it makes sense for the Broncos not to do anything?
Well, I mean, Pat Bryant, I think he is kind of coming into his own, but he's still underutilized, in my opinion. And the idea of going out and, trading for another receiver, whether it was Jacoby Myers, who he was a lot of conversation about him, but he's gone to Jacksonville Jaguars, another guy, Waddle from the Miami Dolphins. It doesn't make sense, Phil, to give up draft capital for wide receivers when you already have wide receivers on your squad. The idea is that you have to use them. You have to put them in advantageous positions, and that's something that hasn't really happened. And also consider this. You had Devon Vele on this team as well, but he was traded right before the season started to the New Orleans Saints. Now, Vele wasn't a burner. I mean, he had some speed, but he was still dealing with a knee injury. So I understand it to a certain point, but still, you still have Troy Franklin. You still have Pat Bryant, who we just mentioned. And then you also have Marvin Mims. But the one thing with Marvin Mims is not being utilized, just like Pat Bryant, in the way that fits his skill set. Marvin Mims is a vertical threat. We saw it last year in the back half of the season. And even then, Phil, we were all scratching our heads like, wait a minute, why is Marvin not being more incorporated into the scheme? And then the last 6 or 7 games is like this explosion with Marvin Mims, like, yeah. Oh, we just found him. Here's the guy we just traded for. It's like, no, he's been on the team, but the plays have not been dialed up for him. And I would like to see Marvin Mims run a lot of, vertical routes and intermediate routes. unless the Broncos organization feels as though, you know what, he's just, one-track pony. He can just go vertical. He can't run all the routes on the route tree. I don't know this per se, but I feel as though Marvin Mims, there's a lot left in this kid that this kid can actually do. But once again, it's not being dialed up for him.
Yeah. And sometimes it feels like when Bo lets one of those long ones rip, you're like, I don't know what's going to happen here. Let's see what happens. But yes, it does feel like some of these guys have not been utilized to their full potential just yet. Like Troy Franklin has a huge game, and then you just don't hear much from him. It's just a little inconsistent. But it does feel like, man, Pat Bryant continues to make big plays. And when the ball comes into his direction, he's like sure-handed, So it does feel like maybe the Broncos have enough here, but it's not quite all come together just yet.
No, it hasn't. And that's kind of the disappointing part when we watch the Broncos for 3 quarters lay an egg, and then all of a sudden an offensive explosion in the fourth quarter. And once again, that's exciting to see a team do that and do it as consistently as they have been. And for me, it builds a lot of false hope. For me, if this team is to be considered to be a playoff contender, and I'm like a true contender, I'm not talking Super Bowl, a true playoff contender, I know they're sitting at 7-2, and people are like, well, Nick, what are you talking about? They're 7-2. But see, that 7-2 doesn't really look like a 7-2 team. It really doesn't. Now, I mean, if you see it differently, you tell me.
No, I agree with you, Nick. Like every single week, I'm like, man, they're winning games here, but I just don't feel good about it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, okay, yeah. I do think that it is a skill to come back in the fourth quarter. I do think that this team has confidence and like sort of a hardness about them. Like they feel like they're going to win. And I think that's important. But I do feel like the Cowboys, like that was one time where I was like, okay, it all came together. But I think the Cowboys aren't that great of a team right now. So I agree with you. Like, I feel like every week they continue to win, but I just don't feel great about it.
Well, what happens is, Phil, winning is the perfect deodorant, man.
Yeah.
Because it masks a lot of issues and flaws that you have, because the conversation from those in or around the team is that they won the game. So why are you upset? And it's just like, well, are we going to just overlook some of the glaring issues with the team just because they won? Yes, you accept, you acknowledge, you validate the fact that they've won. But once again, you're looking at how they won. You say, well, sometimes in this league, you have to win ugly games. Yes, that is true. But when we're looking at how the Broncos offense are able to do this, it's based because the defense is carrying the water for them. They're keeping them in the game. The Texans game, the goal line stand, that was bananas. That was freaking ridiculous, right? And then you just say special teams. Bandy fumbles the ball. It puts the defense in a difficult situation, and they hold to a field goal, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the saving grace of this team. And sometimes, once again, it could be fool's gold, not real gold, but someone got some spray paint and painted gold.
Yeah.
So, and for me, this fan base deserves more, because it's based on what we were told and during the pre-draft process, and also before the season started, right? Of what this offense could be.
Yeah.
Because by not allowing Bo to play to his skill set, by calling plays that fit him, now people are calling, well, you know what? Is Bo in a sophomore slump? And the head coach doesn't want to have any conversation about a sophomore slump. But it's a phrase used in the game because it's a real thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think maybe one way to put it is like they continue to win games, but some of the issues that are there week to week to week to week, outside of that Cowboys game. But they come back and they beat Philly, and you're feeling like, okay, Philly's a good team, Super Bowl champs, but they found a way to win. Feel good. But then it continued. Jets, same thing. Struggle, figure out a way to win. Giants, struggle, pull off the miracle. Crush the Cowboys, but then last week, struggle, find a way to win. So, yeah, I just feel like maybe some of the issues continue to linger there. But sitting at 7-2, Nick, man, like you got to feel good, I think, if you're the Broncos at this point, right?
Well, you feel good as an organization with all the struggles that you just mentioned. Like we're having these offensive struggles and we're still 7-2. So it makes everyone really excited because it's like, hey, once we get this offense to come along, man, it's going to be massive. But that's the thing, Phil. We're at the midway point in the season, and the offense is still looking like they're coming out of the first week of the preseason.
Yeah.
Right. And for me, I'm like, as a football guy, I'm like, no, that's concerning.
Yeah.
Right. You can say, well, we're still winning games. Right. We're firing the fourth quarter. I'm like, yeah, I'm with you. But coach, we have a problem because we have to wait to the fourth quarter to actually really turn it on. What happens when we play a team that they can turn it on for 4 straight quarters?
Yeah.
Right. We saw what happened to the Broncos in their first playoff appearance on the road in Buffalo against Josh Allen. Right.
Yeah.
They put the defense in a tough spot.
Yeah. I think
you can't do that.
Yeah. And talking about fool's gold, like, I think that, like, you're doing this against like the Jets, not a very good team. You're doing it against the Giants, the Texans with a backup quarterback. I think the one thing you point to is like, well, you did it against the Eagles, but it felt like maybe the Eagles were going through a little something there. They lost to the Giants the next week. So like maybe that win isn't quite as good as maybe people are leaning on that. So yeah, I don't know. I think you just kind of go through some of these things over the course of the year and you're hoping that at some point they'll break out of this. But I do think I'm with you, Nick. I'm right there with you. I don't feel great about it. Like typically a 7-2 team is like loaded. They've got all the roster just feels really rock solid and you're thinking big things. I think this team just has a little bit of a different feel because of the way they're winning and because they're still young in so many areas that you're like, okay, if these guys continue to develop, then they could be really good, but they're not quite there yet. Then again, it's only halfway through the season, so maybe later they'll get there. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you.
See, that's the concept that some are selling.
Yeah,
like okay, well, it's at the midpoint. You know, it's a young team, and maybe they'll get it at some point down the way in the calendar as far as the schedule is concerned. I'm like, no. I mean, all of those are like justifications.
Yeah, you got to do it. You got to do it.
You have to do it because if you as a member of the fan base, you as a member of the team, the organization, you start lying out justifications, then it makes it easier.
Yeah.
Like when a team doesn't perform well, you can justify it. And then once you apply the justification, that's kind of the magic Band-Aid, if you will.
Yeah.
Right? Let's overlook all these concerns that we have offensively by putting this magical Band-Aid on it. I don't know about you. I'm a grown-ass man, and I don't believe in imaginary animals. Right? So I'm from the old school way of thinking with Bill Parcells. Tell me what it is, and then show me what it is at the same time.
I like that. That's a good way to put it, Nick. Yeah, show me. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I think that this could be a game where the Broncos come out and have some success on offense, but I think you mentioned that Kansas City game. We're going to know a lot more about this team, where they stand after playing a team like Kansas City, I think. But I'm interested to see what you think, though, here, because the Broncos, they've got their issues. They're 7-2, though, and you look around the rest of the league, look at the rest of the AFC. Does a team stick out to you, Nick, that's like, hey, this team is the juggernaut, this team can't be beat? Or does it feel like it's really wide open? Because we saw Tuesday, the Colts went all in. They make the trade for Sauce Gardner. They feel like they got a legit shot at this thing. Like, how do you see the AFC coming together here?
Well, right now, I mean, everyone has lost games, and it comes down to who can win in those particular moments. Which play caller do you believe in? Which quarterback do you believe in? Do you run the ball well? Like for me, I'm still going to lean on Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. Now, their only problem is their defense, right? They don't have an offensive problem. They have a defensive problem as well. And you look at Kansas City. Kansas City can't really run the ball, right? We know they can be explosive and creative, but even their defense has started to show some flaws as well, because now they have been carrying the load like the Broncos defense for the offense for the last 2 or 3 years, and it's starting to weigh on them based on time of possession. And then you look at the Colts. Yeah, the Colts lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and no one expected them to have as many turnovers when I think it was like 6 turnovers. But you add Sauce Gardner. Does that help them out? Yes, because it gives them confidence, because now it goes back to doing what the Pittsburgh Steelers have done for so many years. Run the ball, play great defense, right? And just don't turn the ball over. It is a simple philosophy. We've seen Trent Dilfer do it with the Baltimore Ravens. We've seen Brad Johnson do it with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's like, I don't know why some offensive coordinators want to prove how smart they are, but the game is not that difficult. Don't turn the ball over, play great defense, get stops, run the ball. I mean, I don't
It's
get
simple.
it. It's simple.
Yeah.
Right? But some people don't know how to just make just the perfect spaghetti by doing just the simple things. They want to add all this stuff in it. No. We're eating spaghetti.
Yeah.
It is not gumbo, right? I want spaghetti. I don't want gumbo. But you have these individuals trying to make the most simplistic thing complicated, and it eventually hurts their team.
Yeah. I know that Daniel Jones had a couple fumbles, 3 interceptions. I know because he was on my fantasy, so that killed me.
He was on my
I was like,
fantasy
come
team
on, man.
Yes.
I'm with you, Nick. Like it feels the AFC, like some of those top teams went through some bumps at the beginning of the year, but I still am afraid of them. Like I feel like Buffalo's going to be there. I think, Kansas City lost the Bills, but I feel like they're coming back. The Ravens are coming back. Like those teams still scare me, Nick. So,
well, you should be scared, because think about the play that they're getting from the quarterback position, right? Their quarterbacks are not being forced to play in the box, right? They're being told by their coordinators, hey, man, we know you have a unique skill set. So we're allowing you to color outside the lines, right? Because when you color outside the lines, you put stress on opposing defense. But when you are forced to color in the lines, man, we've seen that coloring page before. I mean, it looks great, but it doesn't excite anyone. So color outside the lines. If Sean Payton allows Bo to color outside the lines and stop coloring and tracing Drew Brees, now we're talking about a whole different element.
Yeah. He's dynamic with that, I feel like he could be just so great if he's allowed to do some of those things. So
yeah,
I'm right there with you. And hey, what about that haul that your guys with the Jets pulled off with that trade? I know you got to be happy with that. I know Eric Glenn's got to be happy. Huh?
Well, yeah. I mean, you get anytime that you can get value for a player that you have on your team, and you can get 2 first-round picks. That's great. Now, it'll work out for the Colts if the Colts end up winning while getting to the Super Bowl. They don't even have to win.
Worth it.
That will show that, it was well worth those 2 first-round picks. But here's what it also says. It says as though they're all in on Daniel Jones. So the question is, well, what does that mean for Anthony Richardson?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
That's interesting, yeah.
What
kind of forgot he was there.
See, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's like one of your kids. You're like, oh, I forgot you were sitting there, right?
Yeah. I try not to do that, Nick.
Sometimes it might happen. So it's going to be interesting to see how both the Colts and the Jets play this. But kudos for Darren Mugie and Aaron Glenn for being able to pull this off. And I like to see what they do with these first-round picks in 2026 and 2027.
Yeah, that's sort of the thing. Nice haul in the trade, but now you got to hit on those picks. Otherwise, it's not worth it. So, good stuff there, Nick, man. I appreciate you always keeping it real, because I do think that a lot of Broncos fans are really all in on this hype right now. And I think the media can kind of start to buy into that too. They get, riding on this train. And I think that there are some things there that enough people aren't talking about right now. So this could be the week, though, that it's a get-right game against the, Raiders team on Thursday Night Football. Don't you see them putting up some points this week?
Who, the Raiders?
No, the Broncos.
Oh, yeah, the Broncos, I definitely see that. And once again, Phil, this is going to be one of those games where the Broncos are on prime time. No, everyone's watching the game. They're going to wow and amaze, and they're going to put up some points. And everyone's going to say, well, hey, look at Bo Nix and the Sean Payton offense and the Broncos, and now, 8-2 with a couple of days rest, getting ready to face the Kansas City Chiefs. But it's just like, well, this is what you're supposed to do against a team that is one of the worst teams, not just only in the division, but in pro football right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they should go up and they should actually load up the stats. And that's going to be what people are going to talk about after the game. Look what Bo did. Look at his percentages over the past 5 or 6 quarters. All of that is going to go in there, and though it should. But at the same time, let's keep it within reason. This is against the Raiders.
Yeah.
Now, there's a flip side of that. If they struggle again offensively and have to rally in the fourth quarter, that's going to be bad.
Can't be rallying this week against this Raiders team. That would the alarms would really be going off, I think, then, Nick. But yeah, I feel like this is going to be a game where the Broncos put up a ton of points, and everybody's going to be like, the offense is amazing, and then get a little bit too hyped up about it. And then I think that we'll find out just a lot more about this Broncos team after that Chiefs game. They beat the Chiefs and they crush them, then I'm going to be riding that wave. I'm going to be on that surfboard, Nick, I'm going to ride all the way into the beach.
Just make sure you have on a life preserver and you avoid those rip currents.
Yes, exactly. That scares me. I mean, rip tide is something I'm definitely afraid of. Thankfully, yes. I live in Colorado. I don't have to deal with that.
Exactly.
All right, Nick, I appreciate you, man. And thank you so much for coming on the program. I always am entertained and I learn something when I chat with you. So really appreciate it.
Appreciate you, man. Thanks for having me.
So really good stuff there from Nick Ferguson. My thanks to Nick for coming on the program here on trade deadline day. Broncos, again, not making any moves. Maybe some talks about making a big swing, trying to see if maybe Jalen Waddle is available from the Dolphins, Chris Olave, making a big move like that. But instead, the Broncos standing pat, no moves here for Denver. And you got to trust the long-term vision here with guys like Troy Franklin, like Pat Bryant coming along and really part of the Broncos' future here, not wanting to give up future draft capital to acquire a guy on trade deadline. So I did enjoy the conversation and the back and forth a little bit with Nick here, talking about this Broncos offense. I just think that every week I have a different feeling about this team. After the Cowboys, I was feeling pretty good. And then this week, you're back to it and you're like, okay, look, the Texans are an outstanding defense, number 1 defense in the league. You knew this was going to be a battle. I thought it was actually really good that the Broncos stayed patient in that game. They never panicked. Despite the early turnover from Bo, nothing too terrible happened in that game. And at the end, it really did feel like, because the way the defense was playing, that the Texans were just never really going to be a threat to go down the field and score and win the game. Like, I just never, ever felt that. In fact, after the first field goal in the second half, the Texans, I think their longest drive was only like 5 plays. Outside of that first drive in the second half, 44 total yards for the Texans in that half. So the defense just really put the clamps down. And now you could argue maybe that was a different outcome if CJ Stroud stays in the game. And I think that I think it was good that the Broncos stayed patient. I think it's good that they have the confidence and the understanding that, look, at some point we're going to make a play here and we're going to win the game. That's important to have that confidence in that feel that, look, we're going to win this game no matter what. That's what champions do. That's what, like, really good teams, they always have that belief. But because of the way the offense looks at sometimes, you're just like, gosh, I don't feel great about that. And you feel like, oh gosh, like if Josh Allen and the Broncos, for however the record shakes out, if they got to go to Buffalo in January, you just don't have a great feeling about that right now, even though the Broncos are 7-2. And so I think that if the Broncos, and Bo Nix in particular, I think really if he used his legs a little bit more early in the game, that would do something to the opposing defense that they'd have to play a little bit different, that it would just open up things. Let me know what you think about that. Do you think Bo should use his legs a little bit more? Or are you like, look, if Bo gets hurt and misses some substantial time, that blows the Broncos' chances this year, right? Like, if he gets hurt and he's not available, there goes whatever chance you want to make at a playoff run. So you got to protect Bo, right? Or are you saying, look, no, they got to play and not be afraid about injuries, and you just got to go out and play football? I think that's where I'm leaning. Just say, Bo, you got to go use your legs. That's a part of what makes you a special quarterback. Be smart about it. Run out of bounds. Take safe slides. But I think that this is something that's got to be incorporated. Also, like, look, J.K. Dobbins started that game great, and the Broncos went away from the running game. They got to continue to pound the rock there a little bit more, and that could open things up too. But it's hard to be too critical when they're 7-2. I mean, there's a way you can look at it and say, hey, if they don't, have 2 last-second field goals go against them, they could be undefeated at this point. The flip side to that, though, is the Broncos have now won on 2 last-second field goals. And so, I do believe over the course of 17 games, things tend to even themselves out. But I just feel like against a really good team, the Broncos are going to have to bring it on the offensive side more and earlier. I just feel like that they're going to have to continue to work on that side of the ball. And they have plenty of time to do that. Nick says that, he's a grown ass man and he doesn't believe in, that they need to have brought it by the middle point here in the season. But I do think that over the course of a season, there's ebbs and flows to things. You don't want to peak too early. You want to continue to get better and better and better and better. And, at the halfway point at 7-2, you're feeling really good. So that's how I feel about it. So I have concerns. I don't think everything is all gold and peachy, I think that this team still, if they really want to be a contender, and I think that they can be, they're going to have to work on some stuff on the offensive side of the ball. They're just going to have to be able to bring it earlier, and they're going to have to do things. But I will say the schedule is really shaping up well for this team. I mean, Kraft is injured for the Packers. That game suddenly seems not quite as bad because he's such a talent and such a weapon for what Green Bay likes to do. Jaden Daniels won't be playing for Washington when they face each other in a couple of weeks here. Like the Broncos they'll have this little mini bye after a Thursday night game. They still have their regular bye week, so some time to get some of those bumps and bruises a little bit better. Like, I just think that the schedule really looks good for this Broncos team, and I'm just curious to see how they match up against the Chiefs. But I do think that the way this thing's shaping up, the Broncos are really going to have a chance to end the season with only a few losses here. If they continue to play this way, they could be in really good position standing-wise. I do still have my fears about, like, Buffalo, what Kansas City is able to, if they're able to work through this. I think that Baltimore is still going to be there. New England is doing some great things. The Colts make a big move here. So there is some – I think that the way that the standings look right now, it could be a lot different come 1 month from now. You hope that the Broncos – and I think that they'll still be right there at the top. And I think at this point you're thinking, look, if they can get a home game, that would make a big difference. And if they can just play a little bit better on offense earlier. It's one thing to go out there and whoop up on the Cowboys and crush them early. That's one thing. To do it against a better defense and feel like you're in control the whole time and you put these teams away earlier, that's a different deal. And I just feel like, yeah, Houston's a good team on defense, but really the Broncos should have not had that ever come down to that last second. So I have just mixed the feelings, and I think that that's okay at this point. We're going to know a lot more here as the season continues to go. So that's my thoughts on that, and I did appreciate Nick willing to raise his concerns, and even though maybe some fans might get upset about that, it's important that, look, this guy played in the National Football League for a long time. He's around the game a lot. He's covering this team day in and day out on the radio. He knows what he's talking about, okay? And so I think that if he's bringing those concerns, let's hear him out and let's see what he has to say. And I agreed with a lot that he had to say there. So I appreciate him keeping it real, even though I know some fans don't want to hear it. They're going to say, hey, they're 7-2. Bo Nix is great. Everything's golden. I just think that it's important to keep things real and have a good conversation about what's really going on here when they're having their struggles. So I appreciate Nick, and I know that Nick will always let his real, true opinions be heard, and that's why I appreciate him always coming on. So if you like this conversation, please like and subscribe, and please leave a comment below. I do not have a bourbon review. This is sort of a weird week. Thursday Night Football coupled with the trade deadline sort of made this a sort of a weird episode. So I apologize for that. I'll be back next week with a bourbon review for sure. So anyway, that's going to do it for us. The Broncos standing pat on this trade deadline, and some thoughts there on where the team stands and looking ahead to the Raiders. Broncos should crush the Raiders, okay? This should be no contest, especially on Thursday Night Football. Just line up and go take care of business here, and this one should be no problem. Although Brock Bauer is a concern, he shouldn't be able to do that much damage that the Raiders somehow can pull off an upset. I don't see that happening. I think the Broncos, you feel better about the offense after this one, although you know that the real test comes a week later against the Chiefs. So that's my thoughts. Anyway, all right, that's going to do it for us. For Broncos and Bourbon, I'm Phil Milani.